Hey-ya, hey-ya, see below. Hey-ya, hey-ya, storm wind blow.
Chapter 3. Lapo at first light. The runner opened his mouth. Tavaro wished for a monster. Monsters were clear. They rose from the sea with teeth, limbs, venom, hunger, and a refreshing lack of argument. A monster did not arrive at a healing house, carrying news from the docks, and wearing the face of a boy who had just learned words could bruise. Senara stood beside Tavaro's mat, with the bent needle still in her hand. The runner looked at her first. Sensible. Senara had that effect on the living. People looked to her when they wanted permission to remain that way. Then the boy looked at Tavaro. Less sensible. Tavaro smiled at him because someone had to. If this is about the plank, tell Eri I am willing to discuss shared custody. The boy swallowed. Senara did not turn away from Tavaro. Speak. The farbound, the runner said. The word entered the workhouse and changed the air. Tavaro had heard it before in scraps. Mutters from harbour men, prayers from women outside the old salt shrine. Young voices saying it with heat, old voices saying it with hunger, which was worse. Farbound. The word had the shape of rope thrown past a safe post. They are loading ships, the runner said. Many people load ships, Senara said. Not like this. Tavaro watched her hand. She had not moved it. The needle lay between her fingers, thread dark, with the last blood from his wrist. Her knuckles had gone white. Who? She asked. Oran's people, the root callers, families from North Lower, Shell Quarter crews, ridge folk, more coming before night. Tavaro shifted on the mat. His ribs objected. Ribs were narrow-minded things. No sense of timing. Senara's gaze cut down to him. Do not. I was simply considering the shape of my excellent body. You were preparing to stand. Those overlap, the runner said. Lapo is with them. Senara's face did not break. That was the worst of it. Tavaro had seen faces break. He had seen them fold under grief, fear, joy, and the sight of his whale mark being called too close to shore, which, yes, had been partly his fault. Faces were honest when they broke. Senara's face stayed whole. The needle in her hand bent farther. Tavaro saw it happen. A slow curve under the pressure of fingers that had learned to hold steady through birth blood and death fever. She looked down at the needle, as if it had failed her by becoming metal. When? She asked. First light. The workhouse went silent. Outside, the harbour lived on. Tavaro could hear a mast knock wood. A goat complaining from 3 lanes away. The suck and drag of tide under the lower piers. Too many feet on dock planks. Too many rope coils being moved. Too many storage lids thrown open. He heard what the runner had not said. Water casks, sailcloth, dry grain. Children crying because they had been woken from naps and told to carry their lives in baskets. A fleet, then. Not a few fools with a prophecy and a bad sense of weather. A fleet. Tavaro sat up. The room shouted without words. Senara's hand landed on his shoulder. 2 keepers moved toward him. Eri squeaked. Otha Wren began to rise from his shoulder mat, saw Senara's face, and wisely remembered his injury. Tavaro got halfway upright before his ribs stole the rest. Pain cracked across his side, bright and mean. He locked his jaw. The child mark burned under the binding, hot as a coal pressed into skin. Yes, he told it. I noticed. Senara leaned over him. Lie down. The docks are busy. Then they will remain busy without you. That has rarely improved a situation. You cannot walk there. I walked here. You collapsed at my gate. I arrived first. The collapse was separate. You are not charming when bleeding. That is a harsh limit on my personality. Senara's hand pressed harder. Not enough to hurt. Enough to tell him she knew exactly where the ribs sat and how to punish him if he wasted her work. He looked at the runner. Lapo said first light. The boy nodded. And Oren? Another nod. He speaks from the root house tonight. They say the staff has opened the eastern road. There it was. Staff. Tavaro felt the skybone line stir beneath the bound seam of his right wrist. It did not like that word, or it did not like the pressure behind it. The line was a thing of sky, oath, and road. It answered to the three near gods, and to Tavaro's blood. It did not have thoughts in any tidy sense. It had moods. At that moment, it had the mood of a dog smelling a snake. Sonara felt the twitch in his arm. Of course she did. Her eyes dropped to the bandage. "Out," she said. The runner backed up at once. "To the courtyard," she added, before every apprentice in the workhouse obeyed the same order. The runner vanished through the screen. Eri stared after him, then at Sonara, then at Tavaro, then at the bent needle. Sonara said, "New needle." The girl moved. Tavaro lowered himself back onto the mat before Sonara made him. Strategy. A man who surrendered one hill might keep the mountain. Sonara. "No, I have not asked. You are wearing the question with your whole body. That is unfair. My body is expressive. Your body is broken. Parts of it are only disappointed." She stared at him. He tried the smile he had used on angry kings, grieving widows, hostile children, suspicious dogs, and once on Vadrak the Crownback, who had hated it enough to lose an eye over the matter. Sonara did not move. Tavaro let the smile fade. It had nowhere to stand in that room. "Lapo is leaving," he said. "I heard with Oren." "Yes, at first light. I understand mourning. You cannot expect me to stay here. I expect you to bleed less than you want to." "I do not want to bleed. You behave otherwise." He swung his feet off the mat. Sonara's hand was at his chest before the second foot touched woven reed. She did not shove. She simply placed her palm flat over the binding and waited. His breath had to pass through that hand. "You will tear the rib," she said. "Possibly you will fall before the lower market." Rude. "You will bleed through the wrist bandage." Likely. "You will reach the docks looking like a dying omen, and every far-bound fool who already fears you will see you trying to stand between them and their ships." That stopped him. Sonara knew it did. Her eyes were dark, tired, furious, and far too clear. Tavaro looked away first. He hated that. He had stared down Moorspawn with more eyes than sense. He had looked into mouths big enough to house weather. A mortal healer, with blood under her nails, should have been easier. She was not easier. "They are sailing beyond the raised roots," he said. "I know. They will die. Some may, all." The word came out harder than he meant. The room felt smaller after it. He heard an apprentice stop breathing. Sonara did not flinch. "They are people," she said. "They are bodies in boats, crossing more deep roads." "They are people," she said again. "Do not count them dead before they have finished packing." His fingers curled around the edge of the mat. The reed split under his grip. The child mark pulsed. He released the mat. "They are people," he said. Sonara's eyes changed in the smallest way, not softness. She would rather set her hair on fire than offer him softness when he wanted it too much. Recognition, maybe. He hated that, too. "I need to hear it from him," Tavaro said. "From Lapo?" "Yes. You are not walking to the docks. Then I will crawl. It will add dignity." "Tavaro?" "I will listen. Your listening has a habit of becoming action. I will be charmingly weak. You are never charmingly anything." "Sonara." She closed her eyes for one breath. When she opened them, she looked older. Not old. Sonara was not old. She had the age that came from watching too many bodies make bargains they could not keep. "You come back here," she said. "You do not go to the root house. You do not touch the staff. You do not stand in front of a crowd. You do not call a mark. You do not pull the line." Tavaro nodded at each order. It was exhausting. She had so many. "And take Marel." "No." "Yes." "Marel hates me. Marel distrusts you." Marel sharpened a knife louder when I looked at him. "He lost his mother to pale salt." The words landed like a hand on the back of Tavaro's neck. He had known that. Somewhere the workhouse had held too many sick during the pale salt. Too many names had become steam and salt and coughing. Tavaro had returned late from the West Reach, dragging a broken Moorspawn jaw as proof of useful labor, while the Sulari Isles counted their dead. He had walked into the aftermath and found people looking at him as if rescue had missed its appointment. Marl's mother. Letha, perhaps? Fish-trap hands, a laugh through the nose. A son with solemn eyes who had once stood near the south steps, had watched Tavaro mend a net badly for the privilege of being near people who pretended not to stare. The child Mark warmed, which was worse than burning. "I will go alone," Tavaro said. Sinara studied him. Then she stepped back. "Then go alone." That was also worse. He stood before she could change her mind. Pain rose with him in layers. Thigh numbness first, then ribs, then wrist, then the deep bruise across his back that had been waiting for its chance to speak. His body considered folding. Tavaro negotiated with it through spite. He found his balance. Sinara watched every inch of him. "You are leaning left. I am favoring the island's aesthetic. You are limping. I have always been dramatic. You are pale. I am naturally luminous. Your hand is shaking." He looked down. The right hand had closed against his bandage. The fingers trembled once, then stilled because he noticed them. "It dislikes news," he said. "So do I." For one bare moment, he wanted to ask what she would do, not as a healer, not as Veil, as Sinara, with the lamps catching the loose hair at her temple and the bent needle lying on the tray between them. He did not ask. She had no answer ready, and it would have been cruel to make her show him. So he winked at Eri instead, who looked worried enough to drop another bowl. Then he walked out. The first 6 steps were easy because people watched. The next 8 were less easy because people stopped watching. By the time Tavaro reached the rear path behind the workhouse, his ribs had become a council of enemies. His left leg moved like it had been borrowed from a corpse that wanted it back. The bitter root sat in his stomach with the warmth of an insult. The wrist bandage had already begun to spot red. Excellent, then. Everything was behaving exactly as expected. The healer's garden dropped behind the workhouse in terraces of bitter root, fever leaf, blue jar vine, and stubborn weeds Sinara cursed with more intimacy than most people gave lovers. The main road curved down past the market stalls and the public cistern, then bent toward the main pier. Tavaro avoided it. Being seen used energy. Instead, he took the garden path. It ran behind the waste trench, between drying racks of medicinal bark, and down through the smoke sheds where fish, salt meat, and half the capital's patients went to toughen. Smokehouse Lane opened near the shallow dock. The root house sat farther along the lower Shrine Road, above the oldest harbour stones. Beyond that, the main pier reached into the inner water, and beyond the harbour gate, the outer reef made a dark lip against the sea. A useful route, a painful one. Sinara would know. Sinara knew the sound of his bad decisions before they opened doors. Yet she had let him go because the alternative was tying him to the mat, and that would have required rope, help, and a stronger belief in rope than any sensible healer carried. Evening had folded the settlement into gold and smoke. The Solari capital was not one city so much as a long argument with the shore. Houses climbed the slope from the harbour, roof over roof, open wall over open wall, every path bending around old stone, root, shrine, rain trench, and someone's grandmother who refused to move her fruit stand from the middle of a lane because her grandmother had also refused. Tavaro loved it. He loved the smell of smoked fish and hot shell lime. He loved the way children ran barefoot over stone too sharp for mainland feet. He loved old men playing shell counters in door shade and cheating so badly that honesty would have been less work. He loved the songs that rose while nets were repaired, each crew singing a different rhythm until the harbour sounded like 5 arguments pretending to be music. He loved that mortals made noise, as if silence were a personal enemy. The lane opened near the Potter's Ben. He slowed before stepping into view. A crowd moved below. Not one crowd, many currents. Some people headed toward the docks with baskets and bundles. Others stood in doorways, watching them pass with faces closed against feeling. A group of young men carried water jars 2 at a time, grinning too brightly. An old woman followed with a cane, cursing them for walking too fast while not slowing at all. A girl clutched a carved ancestor mask to her chest and cried without making sound. Far bound? Tavaro had expected wild eyes. He would have preferred them. Wild eyes could be argued with, outlasted, mocked if necessary. These people looked awake. He kept to the edges and moved downhill. Snatches reached him. "First light," Oren said. "No, take the seed jars, not the painted bowls." The route showed the river. "My brother says Tavaro will stop us." "My brother is a fool." "Tavaro saved your brother. Tavaro raised the island where your brother buried 3 children. He cannot be everywhere. Then he should stop standing in the center." Tavaro stopped under the shadow of a sail loft. The child mark burned. The last speaker was a woman with a baby tied to her chest and a bundle of fishing spears over one shoulder. Her face was calm. That made it harder to hate her. He wanted to step out. He wanted to say that he had never asked to stand in the center, that the sea had been wide and full of monsters, and humans had been soft and brief and beautiful, and someone had needed to hold the line. He wanted to ask how many children were alive, because he had raised reef rings and safe lagoons. He wanted to show them the scars. He wanted to make the math visible. "Here is the rib from the south crossing. Here is the poison from the blue jaw brood. Here is the wrist seam from the skybone line, which opens every time your boats need a new horizon. Here is the child mark from the day I was thrown away. Here is the price." The woman shifted the baby higher and kept walking. Tavaro remained in shadow. The child mark gave one small pulse. "Yes," he whispered. "Fine. Bad idea." He moved again. By the time he reached the lower market, the harbor had become a mouth of lamplight. Ships filled the inner water, more than he had expected. Too many for a fishing journey. Too many for a seasonal move between raised islands. These had been prepared over weeks, perhaps months, while he was away killing things people could understand better than departure. Large hulls sat low with packed weight. Smaller guideboats clustered around them. Some were standard Sulari build, narrow-bellied and swift, meant to ride reef water and outrun bad weather. Others had been altered. Deep sides, extra lashings, crude weather frames, more storage than sense. Someone had been planning for open distance. His stomach went cold. This was not fever talk from the root house. This was a movement. The waterline faltered. Captain Maru slapped the side of a cask. On the pull. Not before it. The next jar moved cleanly. Tavaro looked toward her. Maru stood near the main pier, with her grey hair wrapped in red cloth and a deck knife at her waist. She did not look inspired. She looked busy, angry, and deeply unimpressed by anyone who confused those two things. A boy in the line moved too early. Maru caught the jar before it tipped, put it back into his hands, and pointed at the rope mark beneath his feet. "There," she said. Again, the boy nodded. The line moved. No speech, no ceremony. Work. Tavaro approved, despite himself. Then he saw Lapo. The boy was not a boy. Tavaro had known that. Technically, mortals did insist on growing when he was not looking. Still, knowing and seeing were different wounds. Lapo stood beside the second deep hull, with a slate tucked under one arm and a tally cord wrapped once around his wrist. His hair was tied back with green cloth. A small root-and-shell charm hung at his throat. A travel bundle lay near his feet, ignored while he argued with a man twice his size. Oren said, "Forward hull." The man said, "Lapo did not look impressed." "Oren is not carrying your mother." The man blinked. Lapo pointed toward the lead ship. "That ladder is too steep. Your youngest is coughing." Second hull. Stern shade. The vision showed. The vision does not climb ladders. The man opened his mouth. Lapo leaned closer, voice softer. Tavaro heard it anyway. "If she falls before the outer reef, you will use 2 hands carrying her, and none carrying water." Second hull. The man stared at him. Then he picked up 2 marked water jars and moved. Lapo turned at once. Who marked this one? No one answered quickly enough. He held up a clay token tied to a jar neck. "This is North Lower Grain. It is sitting beside Lower Sen water. Who tied this?" 3 people pointed in 3 different directions. Lapo closed his eyes. The expression was pure Senara. Tavaro felt his ribs tighten around something that was not pain. "Untie it," Lapo said. "Blue mark goes to the third hull, red to the second, and Javi's family does not share a deck with Otha's unless you want blood before breakfast." A young woman laughed once, startled. Lapo looked at her. She stopped laughing and moved the jar. Tavaro stayed in shadow. Lapo was not only leaving, Lapo was working. He knew old knees, bad ladders, wrong jar marks, which child coughed in smoke, which families would fight if packed too close. He carried the leaving in his hands, not as dream, not as song, as water and shade and the angle of a ladder. People listened to him. That hurt in a place Tavaro had not known was available. Oren stood near the broad pier stone, with the root staff in his hand. He watched Lapo. Pride softened his face. Then the staff pulsed, and the pride became something steadier, brighter, useful. Tavaro's hand curled. "No, not here." He pressed his right wrist against his thigh. The skybone line writhed under the bandage. The root staff's green moved through the crowd like sap under bark, softening the edges of fear, not erasing it. That would have been easier to name. It made fear feel like the old voice of a smaller self, something one could thank and step beyond. Certainty settled over the dock. A father weeping by the gangplank straightened when Oren touched his shoulder. He lifted his child and carried her aboard. Tavaro's jaw tightened. More spawn ate bodies. The root staff did something stranger. It fed on hesitation and called the emptiness courage. No, unfair. The child mark burned hard enough to make him gasp. A fisherman near the net stack turned. "Who is there?" Tavaro slipped behind the sail loft and into Smokehouse Lane before the man saw him. His ribs punished the movement. He braced one hand against the wall, bending forward while pain chewed through the binding. For a moment, the world went narrow. Wall, breath, salt, blood, the awful need to cough, and the better need not to. He waited until the black at the edges of his sight retreated. "Beautiful," he whispered. "Strong work. Very heroic wall leaning." A voice answered from the other side of the lane. "That strap will cut your shoulder raw before the reef." Tavaro went still. "Riva," he knew her voice. "Net maker. Knife. Quick." Strong laugh. A woman who had once shouted at him for dragging a bleeding moor-spawn tail through drying lines. She had been right. He had been less right, which had come as a shock to everyone. Now her voice had no laugh in it. Lapo answered, "It holds. So does a bad marriage. That does not make it seaworthy." Tavaro edged close enough to see through a gap in the wall slats. Lapo stood facing Riva in the shadow between a rope shed and a smokehouse. His travel bundle hung from one shoulder. Riva had one hand on the strap, not caressing. Correcting, her fingers were brown, scarred, blunt at the nails. She tugged the knot apart with the vicious competence of a woman personally insulted by bad rope. "You tied this after loading," Riva said. Lapo looked away. "You packed before you came." "I had work." "You had a bag?" Riva. "Mother, if you want something from me." His mouth trembled. She saw it and did not soften. Not fully. Softness would have given him somewhere to hide. "Eat," she said. "I am not hungry." "You have not eaten since morning." "I have." "Liar." She took a strip of dried fish from the pouch at her waist and shoved it against his chest. "Chew." He looked at the fish. She looked at him. Lapo put the fish in his mouth. "Good," Riva said, and pulled the strap flat. "Now say the thing." He chewed once, swallowed badly. "Come with us." "No." "You did not even." "No." "Listen first." "I listened to your bag. I listened to your hands on the shelf this morning. I listened to you not looking at Senara. I listened when you tied your strap wrong, because your fingers were shaking." His face flushed. "I need to go." "Need?" "No. You want the road, and you want me to stop arguing. That is not fair. It is close enough to you. You do not understand." Riva gave the strap one last hard tug. "I understand too much. That is why I am still standing here, instead of screaming on the pier." He looked toward the docks. "You would stay?" "Yes." "After everything?" "Yes." Under Tavaro's shadow, Riva slapped him. The sound cracked down the narrow lane. Tavaro's hand moved before thought. He stopped it against the wall. Fingers clawed in wood. Lapo did not touch his face. He stood with his head turned, cheek darkening, fish forgotten in his hand. Riva looked as shocked as he did. Then her mouth hardened. "I know what staying costs," she said. "I stayed." Lapo's eyes filled. Riva's did too. She wiped one tear away with the heel of her hand, as if angry at the inconvenience. "You think I stayed because I could not imagine leaving?" she asked. "You think I never looked east? You think every woman who kept a roof over your head was too small to want another sky? I did not mean." "You meant enough." He looked down. The harbour noise swelled behind them. Shouts and rope, gulls and water, Maru snapping another order at the cask line. Lapo's voice stayed low. "When pale salt came, the islands did not save us. The reef rings did not save us. The near gods did not speak. Tavaro was gone." Riva's jaw hardened. "He was fighting in the West Reach. He is always fighting somewhere." "Yes, that is what one man becomes when everyone keeps handing him the sea." "No." Lapo touched the charm at his throat. "That is why I have to go." The charm pulsed faint green. Tavaro's skin crawled. Riva saw the pulse too. Her eyes dropped to it, then rose to his face. "Use your own words," she said. "They are my words." "No, those are Oren's, with the staff smoothing the edges." Lapo flinched. She stepped closer. "Tell me with your mouth." For a moment, he was the boy again. Tavaro saw sand in his hand, mischief in his eyes, small brown feet planted on a god-made chest, as if no one in the world could fall. Then the man returned. "I want to wake up somewhere that is not his gift and my debt," Lapo said. The lane went quiet. Tavaro forgot to breathe. His ribs remembered for him. Riva's anger faltered. The pain left underneath was worse. "That," she said after a moment, "is yours." Lapo looked at her, almost hopeful. She crushed that, too. "It still does not put me on the boat." "Mother." "No, I want you there." "I know. I love you. Do not put this on love." His mouth shut. Riva took the half-eaten fish from his hand and pushed it back against his chest. "You want me to tell you it is all right. I want you to understand." "No. Understanding is not enough for you tonight. You want me to nod. You want me to pack you food and fix your strap and make it hurt less." His eyes spilled then. One tear. He turned his face away fast, as if speed could undo it. Riva let him. That was mercy. Then she said, "Do not ask me to make this easier for you." He wiped his cheek with the back of his hand. "You are my mother." "Yes," she said. "I get to do it badly if I want." A sound left him. Not a laugh, not a sob. Something too young for his grown face. Riva's hand rose toward his cheek, stopped before touching the slap mark, and fell. "Go then," she said, "but go on your own feet." He looked at her. "No blessing hidden in that," she said. "No permission. No nice last line for you to carry. If you go, you carry it." "I can." "Maybe." He swallowed. Then she asked the question Tavaro had been dreading. "If Tavaro tries to stop you, what will you do?" The alley held its breath. Lapo did not answer at once. Tavaro waited, though every part of him wanted the answer less with every heartbeat. Finally, Lapo said, "I will ask him to move." "And if he will not?" Lapo's shoulders tightened. The root charm pulsed again. "I will walk around him." Riva's voice was small. "He is Tavaro." Lapo looked back. Then he should be strong enough to bear it. He left, not running, not storming. He walked away with his bundle over one shoulder, fish in his hand, cheek darkening, and certainty in his spine. The harbour took him back into its noise. Riva stayed in the alley. Tavaro stayed behind the wall. His ribs hurt, his wrist hurt, his thigh hurt. Those were simple. They belonged to the body, and the body could be negotiated with. Bullied, salved, bound, tricked into sleep. The rest had no wound edge. He thought of stepping out. He thought of saying something useful. "I will bring him back." No, that would be a lie. Worse, it would sound like a promise. He is wrong. No. Lapo was wrong about the ocean, wrong about the cost ahead. Tavaro knew that with every scar he had, Lapo was not wrong about the debt. Riva wiped her face with both hands. "Come out." Tavaro closed his eyes. Of course, unless the smokehouse has learned to breathe like a stabbed bull. He considered staying hidden out of pure commitment to embarrassment. The child Mark pulsed. "Yes, yes," he muttered, and stepped into the alley. Riva looked him up and down. There was no awe in her face, no worship, no hatred either. It was the face of a woman who had cried too hard to perform for a legend. "You look awful. Senara has been saying kind things too. Does she know you are here?" "Senara knows everything eventually." "That means no. It means she is very talented." Riva leaned back against the smokehouse wall. Her legs seemed to have given up all at once. Tavaro did not move closer. He had learned at least one useful thing in several centuries. A large wounded man coming closer in a narrow space was rarely comfort. "I was not trying to hear," he said. "That is a stupid thing to say when your ears are famous." "Yes?" She looked toward the harbor. "How much?" "Enough." "Then you know he will not stay." "I know he thinks he will not." Her eyes snapped back to him. Tavaro wished he had chosen different words. He had meant hope. It had come out like ownership. Riva heard the difference. "Do not. I have not done anything. You are thinking of doing it. I think many things. You are Tavaro. Thinking must feel like weather to the rest of us." That was almost funny. He did not laugh. Riva pushed herself upright. "Do not hurt my son." The words were quiet. They found every place in him that had not already been struck. Tavaro heard her motherhood in them, the whole blunt weight of it. "My son." My body fed him. My hands tied his shoes. My knife cut fish while he slept. My voice called him in from rain. Mine. He did not understand why the sentence seemed larger than that. I would never hurt Lapo. She looked at his bound ribs, his torn wrist, his scarred shoulders, the marks on him that had been won by violence and praised as service. "You might," she said, "if you thought it would save him." Tavaro had no answer. Riva swallowed. "He is wrong about much of this. I know he is. The sea is worse than Oren says. Green light is not a map, but if you stand in front of him like a wall, he will throw himself at you until he bleeds and call the bleeding his choice." Tavaro looked down the alley where Lapo had gone. "I can speak to him. You can. I can show him the charts. He thinks your maps end where your hand ends. I can tell him about the more deep currents. He thinks you name every road dangerous if you did not raise it. I can tell him what waits beyond the roots. He thinks what waits there has less claim over him than you do." Tavaro's jaw tightened. "And you?" Riva met his gaze. She was frightened. He smelled it. Human fear had a salt under the salt, sharp and old. She was frightened of Lapo leaving, frightened of Oren, frightened of the sea, frightened of the staff, frightened of Tavaro asking a question that had no safe answer. She answered anyway. "I think you save people until you forget to ask whether they asked." The alley went very quiet. Tavaro could have shouted. It rose in him, fast and hot. He could have listed every dead monster, every raised island, every storm broken by his own body. He could have shown her the Nine Moors' venom track on his thigh, the stitched wrist, the bruises hidden under cloth. Instead, he heard Senara. They are people. He heard Lapo, his gift and my debt. He heard Riva. "Do not hurt my son." The child Mark warmed under his hand. Tavaro let out a breath. It hurt. Pain gave the body a task. That was well said. He managed. Riva blinked. He forced a smile. It came out crooked. I hated it. A startled sound left her. Not a laugh. Too close to tears for that. He looked toward the harbor again. "Will you tell Senara?" "No." His eyes returned to her. "Lapo should tell her," Riva said. "If he has spine enough to leave, he can carry his own words. He will not." "No." "Then she should know." "Yes." Neither moved. At last, Riva said, "You will tell her." The idea made the Nine More seem friendly. "I am injured. You walked here poorly. You can walk back poorly. Senara will be displeased." "Good. She is useful that way." Tavaro nodded. It was a small nod. His neck felt suddenly too tired for grandeur. Riva stepped aside to let him pass, then stopped him with one more word. Tavaro. He looked back. Ask Sonara what to do, she said. Then actually listen. The old easy answer rose in him. I always help. I know the sea. I know danger. I am Tavaro, of the far wake. He said none of it. I will try. Riva searched his face, and seemed unimpressed by the bargain. Fair. Tavaro left the alley. The harbour had darkened while he listened. Lamps burned along the docks. The rootstaff's green glow moved through the crowd like a thought everyone had agreed to call hope. Oren stood near the largest ship now, staff raised while people gathered close. Tavaro kept to shadow, though his body hated every sideways step. He should leave. He had heard what he came to hear. Lapo at first light, Oren and the rootstaff. Riva refusing, Maru moving water, Lapo counting bodies before they became names. Enough. Still he looked. Oren's voice carried now. We know the sea is dangerous, he said. The crowd around him stilled. Tavaro stilled too. Oren, he whispered, do not be good at this. Oren was good at it. He stood beneath the pier lamps with salt in his white-shot hair, and the rootstaff held upright beside him. The green in the wood moved slowly, low and patient. He looked tired. That made people lean in more than strength would have. Tavaro knows the waters past the roots better than any living soul, Oren said. Listen to him when he speaks of current and more spawn. Listen when he says a hull will crack. Listen when he says you need more rope. A few people looked toward the dark lanes, as if Tavaro might step out in answer. He did not. Oren's hand tightened around the staff. I am afraid too. The words quieted the dock. I know enough to be afraid. Not enough to turn back. The rootstaff pulsed. Tavaro felt the pressure settle through the crowd. Someone near the pier shouted, Then why go? Oren looked toward the ships. For one breath, the old man seemed smaller than the staff. Then he lifted his head. I want them alive, he said. Of course I do. I want more than that. No one spoke. Tavaro gave us ground. Oren said, I will not spit on that. My son lived because of land Tavaro raised and a workhouse built on it. Many of us did. But a gift can grow teeth if no one is allowed to leave it. The words moved through the dock. Tavaro's hand tightened on the wall. A woman in the front called, My mother says we are fools. Oren smiled faintly. Mothers are often correct. A few people laughed. My wife stays, a man said. I go. My brother goes, said another voice. I stay. A boy near the waterline said, I am afraid. His mother put a hand on his shoulder. So am I. Oren nodded once, as if the fear had earned its place on the pier. We leave at first light, he said, not because the sea is kind, not because the road is easy, because the boat is loaded, the dead are named, and our children are watching what we do with both. The far-bound answered, not a cheer, a breath. That frightened Tavaro more. He had heard battle cries. Cries burned hot and died fast. This sound was quieter. It was a decision, settling into bone. The rootstaff glowed like sap under dawn, though night had deepened. Tavaro turned from the docks. An old woman stood in the mouth of the lane, tiny, bent, eyes pale with age and still sharp enough to gut fish. You should not be here, she said. Popular advice today. You should be in Sonara's house, with your bones wrapped. Workhouse? She is Vale. Every hurt thing in this place becomes her house. Tavaro looked at her more closely. Do I know you? You broke my roof once. That narrows nothing. You fell through it as a boar. Ah, he considered. Was the boar impressive? The bill was. He gave her a tired smile. She did not return it. My daughter is on the second hull, the old woman said. Tavaro looked toward the ships. I told her not to go, she said. She told me not to die angry. We were both rude. That seems to be happening often. The old woman studied him. Do not break her boat and call it rescue. The sentence sat on his shoulders. Tavaro said nothing. The old woman nodded, as if silence were the answer she had expected. then shuffled away. The climb back to the workhouse was worse. Payne had a sense of humor. It waited until witnesses thinned, then got creative. His thigh went numb halfway up the market rise. His wrist began bleeding through the bandage in earnest. Each breath dragged against the rib binding. Twice he had to stop. Once he sat on a low wall and pretended he had chosen the rest as a matter of style. No one believed him. No one was there, but still, by the time he reached the healer's garden, the harbor chant had changed. Maru's water rhythm had spread through the lower road, taken up by people loading casks near the shallow dock. Full jars forward, empty jars back on the pull, not before it. The workhouse lamps were still burning when he reached the gate. Sinara waited in the courtyard. Of course she did. She stood with her arms crossed, sleeves rolled to the elbow, hair tied back, face lit from one side by a hanging oil bowl. Behind her, the workhouse moved in low night rhythm. Sleeping patients, quiet apprentices, a pot simmering somewhere, the smell of bitter root waiting for him like a grudge. Tavaro stopped just inside the gate. Sinara looked at his wrist first, then his leg, then his ribs, then his face. You bled through the bandage. Yes. You worsened the limp. It was lonely. You strained the binding. Only socially. You heard him. The humor went out of him. He nodded. Sinara's eyes held steady. Lapo, at first light. Her arms tightened across her chest. He told Reva. Tavaro said. She refused. Sinara looked toward the harbor, though she could not see it from the courtyard. Good. The word sounded like it had cost her. She gave him fish, Tavaro said. Sinara's mouth moved, almost a smile. Not enough to live. She would. He ate some. That is new. She slapped him. Sinara closed her eyes. Also not new. She told him to go on his own feet. Sinara opened her eyes. For a moment the courtyard held only night sounds. Then she said, Reva is often right when it is least convenient. Oren spoke. I know the shape of his speeches. The staff is working on them. Her eyes returned to him. Working how? Certainty. Sinara's mouth hardened. Tavaro came farther into the courtyard. The movement took more care than he wanted her to see. She saw anyway. He made it to the stone bench near the washing basin and sat before his leg chose drama. Sinara did not rush to him. He was grateful, then hurt by the gratitude, then annoyed by the hurt. The child mark pulsed, entirely too smug for a handprint. Tavaro pressed his palm against it. Stop. Sinara's brow lifted. I said nothing. Not you. She glanced at the mark, then away. For a while the courtyard held only night. Tavaro rubbed salt from his beard. His hand came away with dried blood from a cut on his jaw. He had forgotten that one. Small cuts were so needy. Lapo is not being dragged, he said. Sinara went still. He is moving jars, families, old women, coughing children, bad knots. People listened to him. Her face did not change enough. Her hands did. The right thumb pressed against the scar on her left thumb and held there. He always knew who needed a cup before they asked, she said. Oren watched him. Yes, like a father. The pause held too long. Yes, Sinara said, but also like a man seeing a tool. The words came out before Tavaro could sand them down. Sinara looked at him. He expected anger. He got worse. She looked tired. Both can live in the same hand, she said. He thought of Reva's hand on Lapo's strap. Oren's hand on the root staff. Sinara's hand on his ribs. His own hand pressed too often over the child mark, as if shame could be held in place. They think I am a cage, he said. Sinara closed her eyes. He watched the words enter her. She had known them already, perhaps not in that shape. A healer knows infection before pus breaks skin. Some do. You are meant to say no. No, too late. She walked to the basin and took up a clean cloth. They know the reefs keep teeth out. They also know every root ends where your hand ends. I raised islands. Yes. Safe ones. Yes. He looked at her. She met his gaze. That is why it hurts. He wanted to be angry. Anger stood close, willing and warm. He could have stepped into it and felt better for at least several breaths. Fear was colder. Shame had quieter hands. I know the water beyond the raised roots, he said. Yes, they do not. No, they will die. Maybe, he bared his teeth. Do not soften it. I am not. Knowing where a wound is does not always stop the bleeding. That sounds like something healers say when they lose. It is something healers say, because bodies die even when we are right. He looked down at his hands. One bound, one scarred, both too large. Suddenly, he saw them around the skybone line, around monster flesh, around broken boats, around Reva's imagined fear for Lapo, around Oren's thin old throat, because the thought had come uninvited and left poison behind. He curled his fingers inward. I could stop the ships, he said. Sonara said nothing. I could break rudders, cut sail lines, pull reef stone across the harbour mouth, sink the largest hulls in shallow water. No deaths if I am careful. Would you be careful? His head snapped up. She did not retreat. The question hung there. He wanted to shout at her. He wanted to ask whether she thought him a monster. He wanted to remind her of all the times his hands had carried bodies from water, not pushed them under. Riva had said if you thought it would save him. The old woman had said, do not break her boat, and call it rescue. The child mark burned. Tavaro looked away first. I would try. Sonara sat beside him then. That frightened him more than her standing. She set the cloth in his lap, not yet using it. That is why you came back. He stared at the courtyard stones. The stone nearest his foot had a hairline crack shaped like a river. He focused on it because it did not ask anything of him. I came back because Riva told me to ask you what to do before deciding. Riva is smart. She thinks I would hurt him. She thinks you are powerful and afraid. Tavaro laughed once. It scraped. People keep noticing that second part tonight. They have eyes. I hide it well. You hide it loudly. He looked at her then. Are you afraid of me? Sonara held his gaze. The workhouse behind her seemed to recede. The whole Sulari night narrowed to her face, and the answer he suddenly did not want. Yes. The word did not break the world. It only broke something smaller. Tavaro swallowed. His throat had gone dry. Sonara leaned forward, elbows on knees, suddenly looking as tired as he felt. I am afraid, because you can do damage before anyone in that room finishes saying no. His hand closed around the cloth in his lap. I am afraid of the staff, she said. I am afraid of Oren holding it. I am afraid Lapo will not look back. I am afraid the sea will take them and leave us counting baskets. She looked toward the lower road. And I am afraid I will ask you to stop him. There, the sentence sat between them. Tavaro looked at her profile. The lamp painted one side of her face, gold, and left the other in shadow. He knew the line of her nose from fever nights, the scar near her thumb from a bone sore, the place at her temple where hair always escaped its tie when she worked too long. He wanted Sonara to tell him what to do. He wanted someone to say, save them, and have it be clean. He wanted someone to say, let them go, and have that not feel like pushing children into teeth. She had no answer ready. That frightened him more than the 9 more. What are you asking? He said. I do not know. The honesty cut deeper than command. Tavaro leaned back against the courtyard wall and hissed when the ribs objected. Good. Then we are 2 wise people knowing nothing together. I did not say wise. I gave us that. Generous. I am famous for it. Her mouth moved, almost a smile. It failed. He missed it anyway. Below, the harbour bells rang once. Night deepened. First light waited somewhere beyond the dark, gathering itself. Tavaro looked toward the sound. He could not see the ships from here, but he felt them in his mind. Hulls loaded, people sleeping on deck, or not sleeping at all. Lapo with his bundle and his darkening cheek. Riva alone in Smokehouse Lane. Maru slapping a water cask. Oren with the root staff across his knees. Green certainty moving through wood, while the sea waited with its old patient mouths. He had fought the 9 more, with 9 mouths, and 1 plan. Lapo had left him with 3 feelings, and no plan at all. Anger, fear, shame. The child mark warmed beneath his palm. Tavaro closed his eyes. I do not know where to stand if I am not helping, he said. Sonara did not answer quickly. For once, He did not fill the silence. Finally he said, "Senara." "Yes, what do we do?" She looked toward the harbor. First light had not come yet. It was close enough to hear.
First light waits, rope on wood and breath held tight. Full jars forward, empty jars back. The harbor works against the night.
A runner came with salt in his eyes, saying far-bound ships at the shore. Orin's people, lower blood, whole homes walking through the door.
Senara held a bent red needle. Tavaro tried to rise. Lapo's name broke through the workhouse like thunder under quiet skies.
He said the sea beyond the roots will lead them before dawn.
She said they are people,
Tavaro, do not count them gone. Lapo at first light, with the green charm at his throat.
not a boy on broad shoulders,
but a man beside the boat.
let him go, hold him near.
Love is rope and fear is tied.
Lapo at first light,
Walking where no maps survive.
Tavaro took the garden path, with broken ribs and shaking hand.
Past smoke sheds and bitter roots, to where the packed hulls kiss the sand.
He heard the mothers tying baskets, children crying in the cold.
He heard he raised our island.
Then he cannot be our whole world.
The child mark burned beneath the linen, the sky bone twitched below the thread. Every scar became a number, every rescue owed the dead.
Maru called from the waterline,
On the pool, not before.
Lapo counted shade and ladders.
Old knees, coughs, and family wars.
He was not only leaving,
He was useful somewhere new,
Tavaro hid behind the smoke wood.
and did not know what truth to do.
Lapo at first light,
With the green charm at his throat,
not a boy on broad shoulders,
but a man beside the boat.
let him go, hold him near.
Love is rope and fear is tied.
Lapo at first light,
Walking where no maps survive.
River found him in the smoke lane.
Fixed the strap across his bone,
Eat, she said, and he obeyed her.
like a child far from home.
Come with us, he asked her softly.
No, she answered, hard as stone.
Do not ask me to make easy.
All the leaving you have chosen,
You want room beyond his reach,
a shore that owes no man its ground.
then walk around him if he blocks you.
If he is strong, he'll bear the sound.
He is always fighting somewhere.
Yes, and that is why we fear.
A gift can grow teeth in silence,
When no one
is asked to steer. Orin lifted up the root staff, green as sap through storm black air.
There is land beyond our terror.
There is life past managed prayer.
The staff did not murder fear.
It made fear look old and small,
It gave the shaking fathers
a reason not to fall.
Tavaro, washed from broken shadow,
the children south.
Lapo at first light, with the green charm at his throat. Not a boy on broad shoulders, but a man beside the boat. Let him go, hold him near.
Love is rope and fear is tide.
Lapo at first light, walking where no maps survive.
First light waits. Ships breathe low.
Full jars forward, empty jars back.
Some must stay and some must go.
Back where the workhouse lamps were low, some narrow-weighted eyes like flame.
He said they'll die beyond the roots.
She said, maybe, and held his name.
I know the water past the maps.
They do not know the muddy road.
If I am not the hand that saves them,
where do I set down this load?
I don't know where to stand.
If helping is not what they need,
Sinara,
what do we do?
only dawn replied at sea.